Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Sabir, pronouns he, him, and I run events here at the Strand. Before we launch into a discussion of Valerie June Hockett's new poetry collection, Maps for the Modern World, I'd like to share a little bit of history about the Strand. The Strand was founded in 1927 by Benjamin Bass over on 4th Avenue's Book Row. Stretching from Union Square to Astor Place, Book Row gradually dwindled from 48 bookstores until, after over 93 years, the Strand is the sole survivor, now run by third-generation owner Nancy Bass Wyden. We want to thank all of you for your support. Without our loyal community of book lovers, authors like Valerie June and Jacqueline, we wouldn't be here today, and we are so truly appreciative of it. So, tonight we are thrilled to have with us Valerie June Hockett for the launch of Maps for the Modern World. Valerie June is a singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist from Tennessee. She has been hailed by the New York Times as one of America's most intriguing, fully formed new talents. She has recorded 2 critically acclaimed, best-selling solo albums and has written songs for legendary artists such as Mavis Staples and the Blind Boys of Alabama. When she's not touring, June splits her time between Tennessee and New York. Joining Valerie in conversation is Jacqueline Suskin. Jacqueline has composed over 40,000 poems with her ongoing improvisational writing project, Poem Store. She is the author of 7 books, including Help in the Dark Season and Every Day is a Poem. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, The Atlantic, and Yes Magazine. She lives in California. And so, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Valerie June and Jacqueline to the stage.
Hi!
Here we are.
Yes.
We're on stage.
Wow. Virtual stage. I love it.
Happy day. Look at this beauty.
Thank you. I'm happy to join the club, the book writing club.
Isn't it just the most wonderful thing to hold your book? Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, I think I slept with mine the night I received the first copy. I was like, I'm just going to put this right here by the pillow.
I love that. And this is your first book, your first book child.
It is. And I just feel so happy to have it out. I mean, there are little seeds of light, and I know it's my first one, and I have growth and things I want to learn and do in the literary world, but I just got to start somewhere, and I'm so excited about it.
Yeah. I love knowing and just being friends for all these years and hearing you talk about your ideas and seeing them come into fruition in a tangible way. It's like, I always think of this when someone offers up a piece of work that is in tangible form, like a book or a record or something that you can just hold and say, oh, these are all of your ideas right here. And I get to feel them and kind of revisit them as much as I want. And as I was reading your book and dog-earing all my favorite poems, I was also just thinking about how different this is than music, and how, just having something that you can just flip open and touch and read and look at again and again. And you and I have talked a lot actually about being a multidisciplinary being and having all these different mediums and this vast number of expressions. And I kind of wanted to start our conversation with that, because this is a new kind of offering for you, but it's an expansion of everything you're already offering us in your artistry. So I'm really interested in that opening up of saying, yes, and I am also this for the world. I also have this for the world. So
I do. I do think it's their services. They're gifts that you give and you share. And I could just do it for me. But I kind of feel like I have this purpose of sharing my work with the world. And I don't know. I just kind of feel like a bodhisattva sometimes. Like, whatever way I can be creative just let it all come out of my pores and share it. And if it helps someone or gives them a seed of light, then that's great. And if not, if it doesn't resonate with them, then that's great too, you know.
Yeah.
But just like living as creatively as I possibly can. One of my favorite people that I worked with was this musician named Richard Swift, and he was a painter, he was a photographer, he was a musician, he could play everything, and he had no filter to his creativity. He was just like, sure, I'll just try that, and I'll just try that. I mean, I think it does make you a little crazy, but I'm happy to go down that path.
Yeah. Well, and it also allows you to have this sense of freedom with it, where, you know, whenever I teach or talk to people about, you know, making work and being free like that, you know, you don't have to finish it or make it into something. And, you know, out of thousands of ideas will actually come to fruition. But if you're open and you let it pass through, then that, you know, something will end up sticking. And I thought that so many times when I read this, where I felt like all of these poems are such beautiful reminders. They're such deep affirmations of just remembering that you have access to this vast consciousness, that you are this infinite being who can actually try pretty much anything, and just with your mind even. And I love just the power of that as this sense of, here, you can pick this book up and turn to any page and be reminded of some aspect of life that opens a door or sets you free to explore something new. And that thing can just be a part of yourself, or something you see on the street, or just some simple detail. And I just love that sense of affirmation that I find on every page. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. You have something similar in your book that I really love, and it is a poem called "The Relief of Our Endless Becoming." What is it that we're here doing? Go ask the largest tree in sight. It answers, we're just meant to make and make, reaching toward the highest place. It's all a guess, this growth, this work. Someday we topple over, burn, break, unfurl, and our particles become another form. The black space between stars, flesh and limb, rope, rose, graphite, grass, or breath. There's always something new for us to be. So I look at what you just said and the way I just got so much from reading your book. I'd already finished mine, and I opened the mail, and this was in the mail, and I was working on the cover art for it, and I was just like, this is perfect for me. Yeah. Because I was very scared to share these ideas, because like you said, you have these ideas and they're all in a book, and the world knows now what you think.
Yeah.
But I feel there's a freedom when I went and read Audre Lorde's collection of all of her poems, and how I love that. It's massively, and it's great. But at a certain point in her life, she had written a poem, and then she went back and she'd change a word years later, or change a title or something. And I was like, I don't have to be stuck here, you know? I mean, this is what it is today. Maybe I'll have different ideas when I'm 90 or whatever.
That. Yeah, I listened to an interview the other day with Nikki Giovanni, and she's, you know, really getting up there in age, and she was like, oh, I don't have to answer to my younger ideas. It's clear that I'm different now. I've grown. I'm a grown woman now. When I wrote those poems that this person's referencing, I was young. And it's funny, this morning I did a little reading from one of my first books, and I thought, oh wow, I have different ideas, and I talked about that, and that felt good as an artist to be able to say, of course, like these are just the seeds of everything that you'll become. And then also, I think it's really special how these poems sort of accentuate you and your work that you've already created. It's like giving your audience this extension of who you are, like saying, okay, I've let you in on this, I've let you in on this, and now I'm going to let you in on all of this, like all of this language that, you know, words have such deep, intense connotations. And sometimes in a song, I think you can let words have a little bit less power because they get swept up in the music, and you can feel a different feeling that you could attach because of the rhythm or the harmony. But in a book, that you don't have that. You just have the language, and you just let that reader think whatever they want about those words, and it's empowering, I think, for the rest of your work, because it adds this whole other light to it.
Yeah, I was hoping so. I do know that you know, something I was writing in this book earlier today, because I was getting ready for our conversation, and I just wrote the importance of allowing Black women to be whimsical. We're always seen as hard, tough, strong figures. Like Zora Neale Hurston says that at the beginning of Their Eyes Are Watching God, that Black women they're the mule of the earth. And that's heavy, and I have felt that in my life. And what it means to be magical or have a fantasy side or imagination or an illuminance or iridescence to you, or be fairy-like and playful in your heart, even if you're an old Black woman. I wanted to share what that language is like, you know, what it's like to be an adventurer, to be like an explorer, and not like, and just live in different dimensions in the mind, dimensions where the heaviness of earth and things that we face every day don't keep you down. They like are things you use as fuel to move forward. And it's not just, you know, I just addressed it in that way about my physical form, just because that's something that I don't really talk about very much in the book. But, you know, when you are reading it, it could seem like, oh, this is just a bunch of hippie shit. But to me, hippie shit doesn't mean anything if you can't put action behind it, and if there is no body to embody it and move it forward. So that's why I wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Well, I think you really put that into like a very like clear example in the opening prose of each chapter. You have this like small essays that open up each section of the book, and I was floored by those. Like the poems, I felt like are pieces of you that I know from conversation, or even that I have picked up in your music, and they kind of bring it into a moment of clarity, which I love. That's what I love about poetry. It'll take these huge, massive macro ideas and bring it into this condensed, like micro, special, accessible gift. And that's what each one of these feels like, a mantra or a prayer or some like vast concept of consciousness brought into your perspective and then offered up. But those essays are so grounding throughout the book that I think they do exactly what you're saying. They like take this moment for it not to just be this fluffy hippie shit. And it's like, no, this is, we're going to hold the tie here. We're going to like ground down. We're going to root in at the beginning of this section. Just so you know, this is where this is going and where it's coming from. And I so appreciated that, because sometimes poetry books don't have that. And you can kind of like float your way through and you can still get your own feelings. But I just thought that that was such a well-crafted choice. I was so impressed by those. I got really excited for like every chapter would end and then I'd be like, what's the next prose essay going to be? I can't wait to read that, because I had also not read writing of like that of yours before. So that made me really happy that you gave us this chance to like ground into like the deeper meaning, and that I really appreciate that.
Thank you. You know, I'd finished the poems and the illustrations as well and sent it in. And I was kind of like reading back through it, and I was like, I got more to say. Yes. And I just like woke up at 4:00 in the morning and started working on these every morning, early in the morning. And it just means a lot, because it almost didn't happen. It means a lot to hear you say that.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was so impressed. I love those pieces of the book, and especially tying into this feeling of how this book relates to the modern world, and this sort of like reflection on technology and like where we're at and the speed of everything, and the idea of this being a map and how you like move us through these huge ideas of awareness and mindfulness and consciousness, and you provide methods of how to be more present, things to remember to keep you grounded in this moment. And I felt like those essays did that in a really beautiful and powerful way too. Like you could condense something really small. You might see something on the internet. I think this is partially why poetry has had a huge comeback, is because our attention spans are so much shorter now. People are reading things that are so short, and poetry offers a huge punch in a tiny amount of words. And I do think that it's not that people are looking for less information. They just feel like they have less time. So poetry really speaks to that. And then I love how this book kind of like turns that on its head. It's like, yeah, you're going to get this information in this really short, condensed poem, but it's the most expansive concept that you could possibly address in this space, which is, consciousness and the nature of being. And I wondered if there was anything that you wanted to say about the process of trying to like get all of those ideas down, and like what it was like to create this book.
Wow.
I know I said a lot of things there.
That really, it came over time, because when my father passed, it was about 4 years ago, and that's when the limitations started to come. Like, for example, A Light Beyond. Sorry, that's my insulin pump. I just have to make sure that's okay. Or For You. And those started coming. And the way they came, it wasn't like getting a song. Because when I get a song, I get it sings to me. I hear just voices that are singing. Like, I don't know, what's one of my songs? Shoot, I can't even think. Working Woman Blues. I ain't fit to be no. I heard that singing to me. If it were a poem, then it would just be, I ain't fit to be no mother. I ain't fit to be no wife. And that's how I knew that these were poems that I was starting to get, because it was just like, there is a space. I was doing something, and then it says, it has always been there for you, for you. And I start to listen to this voice, and then it says, I tried friends, I tried poems, I tried songs, but none belong. There is a space for you. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to write that down. Where the lens is blurry, where the winds don't hurry, and though the world won't cease to turn, it has been such a heart-aching thing to learn. It has been with salted, wilted tears that burn, that there is a space for you. Can't be hidden like all things true. It's only a body and the spirit flew, but here in me, there will always be a space for you. And so more of those started to come, and I just wrote them, and I was writing every time they came. And that's when Amanda said to me, how's music? How are you? At some event we were working on with Grounded, and I was like, I'm fine. Music, I'm kind of bored right now. And she was like, well, you need to be loving whatever you're doing. You need to love it. And she said, well, how's your writing? You said you were writing when your father passed. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm writing a lot of poems. And that's when she introduced me to Rachel Vogel. And she's the literary agent. And I let her read the poems. We met at a coffee shop, and I just gave her a stack of poems and drawings. And she was like, sure, let's share them with the world and see if any publishers are interested. And so from there, it became a book, but it was really just a bunch of random poems that had been coming for years, like 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how they really come, but these ideas of consciousness and awareness and the journey and respecting the earth. I think about this stuff all the time, like constantly. And I read as much as I can about it, from science to philosophy to musicians' lives, whatever it is. I'm interested. Religions, spirituality. So it's just stuff that's in there.
Yeah, and I feel like that that natural way of just how things progress like that, and that we do, like, as artists, kind of collect, you know, our expressions over time, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I think this actually might be an album, or oh, I think this might be a book. And then I got so excited when I opened this and saw that you had illustrated it, because I thought, oh, that is perfect. That's exactly like paying homage to what we've talked about before, about just allowing ourselves to be all of the things that we are, you know, just whatever kind of artistry wants to come through, and not like limiting that. And, you know, whoever likes it and appreciates it can like it and appreciate it, and whoever doesn't. And I just thought, oh, you're really doing it. You just opened yourself to the whole expression, and even with, you know, all of your drawings and everything, like every level of it. Because I relate to that feeling of being like, yeah, I love to draw, I love to write, I love to dance, I love to sing. I love to, like, let it all come through me however it wants to. So I think what I see in this book is this really beautiful process of that. And although there are all these ideas and specific concepts of, you know, like mindfulness and awareness and relationship and, you know, how to exist in the world, one of the greatest things I felt like when I was done reading this was just like, yeah, you can just be whatever kind of artist you are, just be that. And that kind of permission, I feel like, after everything that people have just been through and this pandemic and this everything that's been going on, there is this moment where I think that kind of permission will feel so charged. And I think I just can't wait to see what inspirations come from the work that we as artists are creating right now. And they are these like service, these seeds, these little initial points of reference or affirmation to like help other people keep their journey going and keep themselves exploring and expanding. And I feel like that's such a beautiful aspect of this. It just offers so much of that. I wonder if you would like to read any of them to us. Are there any ones that you'd like to share that come to mind, or that are some of your favorites maybe?
Well, I will say before I read something that after everything we have been through with the pandemic, the one thing I kept thinking I wanted to do was just ignite people's like their creativity. Well, just exactly like you're saying, and like this book walks you through your own exploration and your inner poet. No matter who you are, you can think of yourself as a poet or not, but just going through the workshops and different pieces in here and doing the practices, that getting that mind turned on, it changes the way you see the world. It changes the way you watch the news. It changes what you think is possible for the earth and for each person. I mean, are there enough resources for everyone to have clean water and food? And I mean, you start thinking just from a more creative space, and maybe we can create that kind of world. So that's kind of what I wanted to do, was plant seeds of each person's watering those creative paths. For example, get the guitar out of the closet, dust it off, learn how to play it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I like this one. It's called The Highs and the Lows. I love my problems because they are mine, and I've got problems of the blue to black kind. Take my problems, count them one by one blessings, multiply them by 10,000 life lessons. Don't tell me your troubles, I've got enough of my own. These are the words from an old country. I lay down, eyes heavy clothes. Hope I've lived my life of the highs and the lows. I like it because I most certainly do have lots of highs and lows. My personality.
Me too.
You disappeared.
Yeah. I know there's a little bad connection, but I can still hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry to interrupt. I think we're just having a slight technical issue. Valerie, if it's okay, I'm just going to pull you from the stage and bring you back on.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Sorry to those watching. We'll take care of this in just a second. Perfect.
All right, we're back. Can you see me now?
That was perfect.
I watched you kind of turn into a vapor in the technological realm. I was like, oh, this is where are you going? You're shooting off.
Going into the galaxy.
As we do.
Yeah.
I did appreciate also that poem you just read, and then there's other pieces throughout this that are so like I love this one that's like, kindness sprang off the page and slapped me in the face, and I, being me, lost my shit completely and whooped its ass up and down the street. I, being me, oops, I guess I fucked up, recognize. And I was like, oh, girl. I was like, this, in the midst of all of this, is just, I was like, yes. Because it's just like that poem you just previously read, too. It's like these pieces they're not trying to sugarcoat the reality of being human and being in a body on this planet and how hard it is. And how many times we forget the things that we know so deeply, and how we lose track of, living as a bodhisattva, or like living as the person who we want to live as. And then that's okay. And that this poem's just like, recognize, like, you just recognize it, you become aware of it, you turn yourself back to the right path, you get yourself, checked back in, and you keep going, and I felt so grateful that you were like generous enough to offer all sides of the spectrum throughout the book of, yes, I can be this like magical illuminated being, and at the same time I can totally miss the point and mess up and be like, there I am being myself, just totally messing up. Like, I just love that.
Please forgive me, that type of situation.
We can only hope that we're forgiven. Yeah.
That's true. That is so true.
Oh, but I love that. That also is like the, you can say as much wildly like esoteric, creative stuff as you want, but then you're like, and I want to keep it real. I want to make sure that I am not lost in the ether. I also recognize what it is to be a human, and it is hard.
It is, most definitely. Mm-hmm. And I mean, with poems like that, and even Ode to Fucking Feeling, like, I was torn about putting them in there, but I was like, you know what? That's how it is. I'm just going to have to put that in there, because that is how it is every day. I'm like on the high point, and I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, hell no.
You're like, oh, me too. Oh my God.
I fell off my unicycle.
Yeah, yes, always. And I think, as being people who share their work, that it's important to also share that. It's just like, no one's claiming to be this angelic, perfectly aligned person all the time. And I think poetry offers a really good space for that. Like, poetry offers a really good space for darkness and pain. And in the same time, you can there's so many poems in this book that are just these like joyous celebrations of being. And I love the juxtaposition of that, of being like just the light and the dark. It's all in there. It's all in there.
Yes. There's one poem where something, I'm trying to, let's see. I love this idea of karma being charged with positivity, and that, you know, the ideal where we are all realizing that we're bodhisattvas and we're all trying to live this conscious, elevated life, that would look like everyone's energy on the planet being charged with total positivity. And that would look like what is happening, the actions that play out would be, they would be joyous. It'd be like you'd be walking like on a moving escalator with one amazing thing after the other happening, not just to you, but to everybody. And so I like thinking about that and having that thought in there, because I do think that there are some planes where that is the reality. Mm-hmm. It's just not on Earth.
Yeah, it's not here, but it could be. And I mean, that speaks to what you were saying before too, about just having this space for people to be able to envision this world that they want to have exist. And, you know, sometimes it takes, for me, reading something that someone else wrote, or hearing a song, or seeing a piece of artwork that kind of opens me up to, oh yeah, why can't the world be like that? And if now I think that it can, then it can. And I think that this book just kind of, I think that's like maybe the heart of this book actually, is that it's like, here's this map to showing you like how to continuously get to that place, to just be like, yep, and I am the one who can envision this, and I am the one who can act this out, and I am the one who can continuously bring this back into being again and again. And I just felt so uplifted reading that, because it's true. We are the ones who are creating this. So, you know, maybe we need people to help us remember how powerful we are. And, you know, that's like that. I felt that when I read this. I was like, right, like this is just a potent reminder of my own personal power to be this like creative, conscious being who can make a new world happen. And I'm doing that every day.
Every day. And when I look at the protests and everything that we experienced last year, and me physically not being able to go out and protest, I think about like what, you know, the goal of the protest, a more harmonious existence and more respect for each other. And I think about like, well, can we really see that here? Can we collectively see it? When we just sit down in a chair, can we really see that? And what does it mean to just see it, you know? And like when we start seeing it and we allow ourselves to be like, yeah, the planet could be more harmonious. Yeah, this isn't a competition against race, against sex or class or anything. And we just start opening our minds to the possibility of more harmony. That's the kind of seed that I hope the book plants. Like things like with collective mind's eye creates everything. That is saying that, yeah, I mean, you might not be able to get on the front line and protest, but what are you thinking? How do you treat that person that's walking down the street who is not your same race and looks a little shady? Are you gonna like get all defensive and scared and act in fear, or are you gonna open your heart and act in love? I'm not saying you shouldn't protect yourself, but you know, like the mind first, open the mind first to other forms, other ways, other people, you know, more harmonious existence, things like that. Those are kind of the seeds that I was hoping we would feel.
Yeah. And you offer kind of these practices of getting to that place, which I also appreciate, because it does take practice to get there. And there's so much that collectively we have to unlearn in order to get there. And I felt like so many times, so many poems in the book are, you know, I was like, you got to say this one out loud. Like, this is like a charm. It's like a prayer, you know, and if you say it out loud, you're getting yourself to think in this new way just by replacing an old thought with a new thought, or with a confusion. There's a confusion that comes up with how to see the world in this way. And a lot of these poems are like answers to that. Well, here's a possible way to do that. Here's a possible way to open yourself to taking the time and the space, to recognizing that, it does take practice, and it does take, I thought a lot about practice while reading this, because to me, like, mindfulness and awareness and all of these like huge ideas are just wrapped into like a very consistent practice. As you're saying, you're like, I read about this stuff every day. I think about these things constantly. And whenever I have conversations with my mom, I'm always like, I just want to remind you that it's actually hard work. Like, it's constant, and it's joyous work, and it's fruitful work. A lot comes from it, but it is work. Like, it is a practice that I have to maintain in order to be mindful. And I thought, oh, this book, it's a tool for that. It's like a mindfulness tool. There's so many poems in there where I thought, oh, if you just like taped this on your wall and said this out loud, and like reminded yourself that this is a space you can hold, or a mental space that you can continuously revisit, then you might start doing that on your own. And I think that is exciting to me as this tool, this poetic tool.
It does. It opens that door, or it has in my life, opened up. They almost seem like little mind clouds where they appear slowly, and they become yours over time after you begin to open up your mind in them. And the forms take different shapes, and all of that ends up happening. I mean, I feel like there are things that come to my mind, and like, for example, the mind is an age-old instrument, and she's tuning her instruments. You have to do that with your mind every day. Like, I have to do so much to not be mean, or to not yell at the person I'm driving in behind, like, get out the way. Stop. Get out the way. Instead of that, just take a deep breath. And this poem is, start the day tuning yourself to the light you came to see in this world. So the same way, when I sit and I tune my instruments, I have to tune myself for the day, for being around people, for being with the plants, for listening to bird song, instead of like being like, why is that bird making all that noise out there?
Yeah.
Like, listening to it and really hearing it in its tones and its cadence and its rhythm and its movement, and the response of it to a cicada or a frog or whatever else, the car going by, and noticing if I'm working in the yard, if I stop doing something, do it stop? Are they watching me? Am I watching them? Like, just being in the world and observing everything that's around us. We're tuning ourselves to the earth's rhythm, really.
Yeah, and I have this hope that after this pause that we've had in our normal way of being, that it's been disrupted in a way that might actually be beneficial for us to slow down enough to do those things, and to have had time to recognize what it is to be able to slow down and tune yourself and tune into these different details that maybe in a fast-paced world we have not looked at as a collective, for far too long. And that now I have that hope from this experience of people being forced to literally take a pause in their life. And then I thought maybe that we can look at this, in all of this grief and all of this hardship, as also like this invitation to see what that has allowed to come out, and like what has come out of us in that space. And I think that kind of harkens back to this idea of why I feel it's important for this book to be out in the world right now, because it's like this offering for people we're all kind of coming out of this period of such chaos, and it's only just starting to open. And will we hold on to all of these mindful moments, will we be able to practice and process all of it? Because there's a lot to process. So we're going to need some tools to help us process all of it. And I think that when I read your book, that's what I felt that deeply in there. I thought, oh, that's like a thing that we will be revisiting for a long time, is this need to look back on everything that's just happened with this awareness of what is it actually given us, like what newness has come from it. Because that's, at this point, that's sort of all we can do. Now we're just like emerging from this craziness and hoping that that's my hope, is that we hold on to some newness that rises out of it.
Me too. And I think about what we're like, we have a clean slate now in some ways. And I also feel like at this time, with our new administration and everything, that there's a portal open, and that we can make great waves in positivity and in re-sculpting the way we relate to each other with this portal. But portals don't stay open long. So you got to get as much done in there at time to be able to live and skate off of that energy for years to come. So while it's open, every creative, every person who's got a vision or a dream or anything like Dr. King's dream or anything magical that they want to create for humanity, not just for yourself, it's like time to do it while the portal's open, because it'll go slowly, but that light from it will still be resonating for a long time. So we got to get busy.
Yeah, we got to get busy. Well, you're busy. This is busy. This is like, you're out there. You put it out there. All right. Well, before we start taking people's questions, do you want to read one or two more for us? It's just so nice to hear you read your words.
Okay. Let's see. I guess I could read this one. Perfectly imperfect. Put on your cloak of pure perfection and head raised, walk out the door. Don't let the weight of your imperfections keep your chin lowered toward the floor. It's in the push, the strive, the shovel drive, the twist, toss, pull, the turn, that you'll begin to slowly rise like smoke as a wild flame burns. Every day a phoenix new from the ash, sparkle blemished jewel. Gather faults, failures, losses, pain, to be used as alchemic fuel. Perfectly imperfect as you are, show up each day without fear. To live flawlessly is like trying to extract the salt from a single tear. Let's see. I'll read this goddess mantra. I was very nervous about sharing my love of the goddess with the world because it's a God-heavy world. But I don't see it as separate from God. I see, it's just a word, Mm-hmm. But I do think that, it needs to be said. The word needs to be said.
I agree.
I call these little ladies in here like, this would be a little sun goddess. She's painting the sunset, and then there's the goddess who's planting flowers, and the blues goddess. I call them fairies and goddesses. This is like a crown that they wear. This is a goddess mantra, and you can repeat this one. I repeat this one to myself while I'm doing stuff. Thank you, goddess, for this life. Thank you, goddess, for this time. Root to leaf and leaf to vine, circle, cycle, dot to line. All things shimmer, all things glow. Small is large to those who know. Them that know can never tell. Each must walk towards the well. Though we journey side by side, them that know might even guide. But for you can't make a move, only guide you, yours to choose. And they'll never share your face, only guide you to the place. and they'll never wear your shoe. Each footprint's different, so each path lays new. Thank you, Goddess, for this life. Thank you, Goddess, for this time. Root to leaf and leaf to vine, circle, cycle, dot to line.
Oh, love it. Love that. And you have a audiobook, right? You recorded these? Did you? Yeah, what a gift that is. I saw that in the back of the book. I was like, oh yes, because it's important. Poetry is an oral tradition, so I think people will really get so much out of hearing you read your words out loud, especially the way you pause and like the emphasis. It's just, that's how you know what someone means really sometimes. So, ooh, that's exciting. Okay, let's see. There are questions here. I will read them and then you can answer them as you wish. This question is, what is something you've learned about yourself while writing maps for the modern world? And would you consider writing another book?
Wow. I think I'll answer the second question first. I would consider writing another book, and I think it would be more alongside the essays than poems. So this book has given me the courage to do that. The part that I was unsure about is the part that maybe I should have been sure about.
Sometimes it works like that.
I think that kind of answers both. It answers that I learned what I should have done and what I will do in the future.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Take your time. All right, this next question is, do you have any nuggets of wisdom for people who might want to begin writing poetry and how to do so?
My favorite nugget of wisdom is to give this book by Jacqueline. Every day is a poem. And the reason why is because there are so many different works that you can do on your own as you're going through and you're reading it that will keep your mind open and keep you interested in writing your own poetry. So I want to encourage everyone to grab a copy of this and to do the work writing practices. And also, whenever you do grab it, you'll be treated with some of her poems that are all throughout the book. So not only will you be writing your own poems, and you can even write in there. So not only will you be writing your own poems, but you'll be reading hers too.
Thank you. Okay, next question is, how do you measure success when it comes to your music and your writing?
Oh, success. Well, I think what it is like the fact that I can be a creative, that I wake up in the morning and from the time I start the day to the time I end the day, I can draw, I can paint, I can play guitar, I can write poems, that I have that freedom and that time now. That equals success to me, because I remember the flip side. I'm in my 30s now. When I was in my 20s and my earlier life, I worked 7 days a week. I started at 6 and I would end at about 7 to 8 or sometimes later if I tacked on some gigs. And that was every day. And I had kept a little journal and I'd write how much I need to save in order to buy myself time so I could take a year off to focus on my craft. And I put a little bit aside and a little bit aside and a little bit aside and a little bit aside. And I never reached that goal because I got sick. But in getting sick, what I realized is that I should have just quit doing all them jobs. I should have just been creative from the beginning. So now that I know that that's my purpose, is to be creative, then I feel like I'm successful. But I think it does, it costs to be able to be an artist. There's you gotta you got to buy time almost, like, because every bit of our time is taken by the way society is structured right now. So to dream costs. You got to figure out, how am I going to keep lights on and to keep this magical dream? And so I think success is, for me, that I've been working in the invisible world, and I've seen that the world where I would be creative, and I just waited the years and drawn it and reeled in the fish. I'm like, can I have the time? Please, I could be broke. I don't care. I just want the time. So time is so important, and that to me is success.
Oh my gosh, I love that answer, Valerie. Oh my gosh. That was a good answer to that question. My goodness. Oh, Lord. Okay. Next question. Just keep them coming here. What are your favorite fiction novels, if any?
Oh, well, I love The Alchemist. It's a silly, kind of kid's story, but I love it, and it's fiction, and I think it's my favorite. Let me think, do I have another favorite? Another favorite fiction. I mean, I really enjoy Parable of the Sower, which was Octavia Butler. I enjoyed it, and I kind of like the way her mind works as a sci-fi writer. I think she's brilliant, or was brilliant. She's not with us anymore, but I like it.
Yes, I love that book. That book is having a big comeback right now. People are like, what's happening to our world? Is this our future? Yeah.
Yeah, read it.
Yeah, read it. Okay, this next question is this. How do we catch and create all of our joy and energy and share it in such a real way?
Yeah, definitely that comes back to the practice and how, mindfulness, joy, positivity, kindness, it's a practice, and you're going to fall and you're going to fuck it up, and it's going to be like some days where you're just like, no. You want to take out this giant eraser. In my mind, I see a huge life-size number 2 pencil, and I just take out this big eraser, wrap both my arms around it, and go back and forth on that moment to try to get rid of those moments where I'm just like, no, man, I fell off the bike. But it's the fact that you keep practicing it, keep practicing joy, the heart wants to close when it hears something painful or when something terrible has happened in the world, but you work on keeping it open every day, just a little bit more. And that comes through for me and Jacqueline dancing in the living room. One side of this record is 22 minutes, so I know if I put one on, I'm going to give a 20-minute dance in. That'll shift your energy. Walking.
Oh, yeah.
Hugging trees. Okay, maybe everybody can't do that, but, you can walk by them and feel their love, especially
I love that. I love that poem. And there's a poem in the book that's like, just touch a tree on your way to work every day or something. I was like, oh, yes, tell people.
Yeah. So those are practices.
Yeah, it's a practice. And then you practice on figuring out how to translate that into your work and, understanding that if you're trying to share it, then you want to make it the most accessible as possible and you want to invite people into your experience, then that takes a lot of focus. And you sometimes you get the message on how to do that and it's very clear. And then sometimes it takes some finagling. It takes some time to figure out, okay, I want to say this. I mean, joy is a huge, huge concept. It's very abstract. It holds so much for so many different people. It means something different to everyone. So if you want to try to bring that into your own craft, then you have to think of how you want to best express it and again, that's just it's a practice of figuring it out and taking the time to see how it best applies to whichever medium you're choosing.
Yeah, cooking, any of those can be the medium.
Okay, let's see if we have time for a couple more questions. I think we do. All right. Looks like we already answered the books questions. Okay. Do you find yourself humming your poems and thinking how they could be incorporated into songs?
Not usually, but there is only one in this book that keeps trying to be a song. But usually, like I said, they come as speaking voices. But this one is trying to sing, and let me see if I can find it and share what it's saying. Yeah, it's The Mind's Eye. I am meant to wander, I am meant to roam. I am meant to see the world and never leave my home. Gently turn my gaze low, see rivulets cross, breathe slow. Colors soften starlight, awakening the true sight. And then it would go back to the beginning. I am meant to wander, I am meant to roam. I am meant to see the world, but never leave my home. And the rest of it would come after that. So that's the only one in the book that I hear a melody to.
Love that. I love that. People ask me a lot, like, what's the difference between a poem and a song? And I usually what I say is, well, a song comes and there's a tune with it. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens. Sometimes, a poem is a song. It just depends.
They're in the same family, I think.
They definitely are. And looks like there's two more questions. One is, how have your experiences in New York influenced your Southern musical style?
Well, I've been in New York for almost 10 years, but I always go back to Tennessee, so I still feel like I'm in two worlds. And outside of the pandemic, for the last decade, I've spent most of my life on the road. So I feel like it's influenced me in the way of seeing like cultures and languages and fashion and all of just walking out the door and seeing so much and hearing so much in the diversity. Versus when I'm in Humboldt, it's more like black and white, and it's home and it's different. And there's not so much like what's happening there and what's happening there. So I need both worlds. I need the world where I can just sit by the pond and let everything that I've just experienced from traveling and the zoom of the city and the pace of the city. My favorite story about that is I did walking meditation with Sister Peace in Mississippi at Magnolia Monastery. Magnolia, it's Thich Nhat Hanh's monastery there. And when we walked, it was very slow. And when she came to New York, we did walking meditation in Manhattan, and she was like, I feel the city pushing me. And I was like, yeah. And you know what I did when I first came up here and I was doing my walking meditation? I resisted it, but now I put my rhythm of my meditation with the cities that I travel to. I feel like the river in every city flows differently. The rhythm of every city is different. And me as an artist and a musician, I want to feel those rhythms. I don't want to resist them. So I've learned how to dance through different towns and feel where I'm at. And that probably comes across in my music, that I picked up a lot of different feelings from different places.
I love that. Such good questions. Thank you, y'all, for all of that. I know. I think that's it. I think that we have gotten to the end of the questions.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Valerie, June, and Jacqueline, for such a just beautiful and interesting conversation. And it was so exciting to hear you sing, Valerie June. Well,
thank you. I don't know what it sounds like coming across here, so please excuse me.
Oh, it sounds good.
It sounds fantastic. To our audience, thank you for spending the evening with us. If you haven't yet purchased a copy of Maps for the Modern World, there's a handy green button at the center of your screen. And Valerie June was kind enough to sign a ton of book plates for us, so you will get a signed copy if you get it from the Strand. And then also all of Jacqueline's books are available at strandbooks.com. I did drop a link for Every Day is a Poem in the chat as well if you'd like to check that out. On that note, thank you everyone and have a great night.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Sabir. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.